friends, and welcome back to the Photoshop Basics for Scrapbooking class. In today's lesson, we're going to piggyback off of last week and talk a little bit more about using the silhouette to cut out different files. Last week, I gave you an introduction to the dashboard and the tools. Today, I'm going to show you how to actually send a cut file from your computer to your machine and have your machine cut it out for you. So let's head over to the computer so I can show you how to cut out a cut file. All right, friends, we are back inside of my Silhouette Studio programming here on my desktop computer. Today, we are going to be pulling in a pre-made cut file, one that I have just located in my Silhouette library here in the program. I also have it in my documents on my computer. It's just going to be a little bit easier to find it inside of the library. We're going to pull in one of these cut files and I'm going to show you how to cut it out using your Silhouette. In addition to how to cut it out, I'm also going to show you how you can make adjustments and changes to the cut file before you send it to your Silhouette. So let's first come in here, go to my library and find a cut file that I think is going to work for me. I want to try doing this one actually. So this is the Sanderson Sisters Brewing Company. So I'm going to double click on this in order to get it open, and you see that it takes up the entire space of my canvas here, and that's okay. When I click on the element here, I can adjust the size of it, so I can make it bigger or smaller. Maybe I want to put it onto a Life Crafted album, which is 5 inches wide. So let's reduce it down to the 5 inches wide. You can also see that there is a slight outline of red around this element. So that means that the cut file or the cut is going to go along the outside of all these edges everywhere that you see the red. Coming up to the top here, I'm going to use my zoom tool to come in a bit closer so we can see what is going on here. So let's maybe come real close. So again, you can see the very slight red outline that's around all of these different elements colored black. Now, if I were going to send this file just as it is to my Silhouette, I would come over to the button here that says Send. We're going to click on the Send button, and then you're going to see that it lights up bright red. So here I have tool number 1 set to cardstock textured heavy with the cut action using my auto blade. Right now it has a force of 30, a speed of 4, and it's going to pass over it 1 time, giving me 1 cut on all of those red lines. For me, that's going to work just fine. So I would go ahead and send this to my studio after loading in my mat with whatever cardstock I'm going to be using on top of that. And once I hit the send button, it will take it over there and cut this file out. But what if I wanted to come in here and I wanted to remove a portion of the file first? For this, we're going to go back to the design file and I want to zoom in once again. Now, with my file clicked and highlighted, I'm going to go up to my object panel and I'm going to select this ungroup. When I ungroup it, you can see a few smaller boxes are going to show up here. If I click off, so deselect from the full cut file itself, and then click on the outer piece here, I can actually move this apart and cut this out on something entirely different if that's what I wanted to do. I'm going to undo that so it comes back to where it used to be. Now let's say I wanted to print this, but I didn't want the premium witch's brew on here with the little dots. Or maybe what I don't want are these stars. So I'm going to click on the stars, which are at this point a group of their own, and I can move them off and cut them out of a different cardstock if I wanted to, or I could just straight up delete them and adjust my file that way. The same could be said for this 1693, the same for this established. I could pull out the cauldron and cut that separately if I wanted to. This just allows me to take these different components that make up the cut file here and change it around so I can customize it the way that I want to. I believe Sanderson Sisters is its own separate file in here, and I can change it that way too. Another way that you can change these files is by selecting on some of these secondary groups, and I can come up to this object again, and this time I'm going to go to Release Compound Path. When I release the compound path, it's now going to create separate files for each individual piece inside of this. So I can come over and select only the S and delete the S if I want to. So maybe I want this to say Sanderson Sister. I can delete the S. Or let's do the cauldron. If I come to the cauldron and I go Object, Release Compound Path, I can now, let's undo that. I can now remove different portions of the cauldron. So I could bring out the main cauldron here. I could, let's put that back for a moment. I could delete the star, which is, each of them is an individual little cut there. Whoops. So let's do that one. If I were to move this, so let's go to, I want to arrange. So we're going to send this to the back. And now we can see some of these other cut files as well. So I can get rid of the star. I can get rid of the little inner portions there, right? And then now I'm just left with the cauldron, or maybe I don't want the bubbles to come out. I can select those individual bubbles and delete those. It just allows me to go in and get further and further, or more and more intricate in customizing what I do or don't want with the cut files here. If I just wanted the words brewing company even, I could highlight a bunch of this other stuff that's now it's now been removed, and just delete all of it. So delete all of these different pieces. Let's get rid of the stars and the little dots and that, and now I'm just left with the word brewing company, and I could send that to my cutting file and just cut out the word brewing company. So using these object tools up here, whether it is the releasing of the compound path, that's going to break apart all of the different words, or, here we go, or grouping and ungrouping. The mirror is going to allow us to mirror the cut file itself. So I could cut this as one file and then create a second one and have this one the opposite way. And that would give me a front and a back where both sides would look finished. We can also mirror this the opposite way too. So you can go vertically or horizontally depending on what you want to do with your file. So lots of different options in terms of customizing an already existing cut file, just with using those object tools up here and then sending them to the machine in order to cut this out. Every once in a while, you might get a cut file that does not already have the cut lines added into it. Let me see if I can find one of those so I can show you what you would do in that case. Okay, so here's an example. When I pulled in this cut file into my program, this is one that I purchased from Citrus Twist a couple years back. You can see that there are no red lines around the outside of this pumpkin. Now, one thing that's really nice about Silhouette Studio, especially the more updated versions of it, is when I click on the send button, it automatically reads what's on my screen and creates a cut file for me. But if I were to go back to the design file here, I can also create my own cut file here as well before sending it to the send area. So for this one, I'm going to click on the trace tool that looks like a butterfly, select the trace area, and we're going to draw a box around the outside of the pumpkin. Now from here, we're able to increase or decrease our threshold. So if I decrease it, it's not going to pick up on any of the color. If I increase it all the way, it'll pick up on all of the color included. I believe it starts around 50%, and it did select everything that I wanted, so I'm okay with that. Next, I can trace the outer edge if I want in order to only cut out the pumpkin shape, or I can trace the outer and inner, which is going to give me all of this intricate pattern in here as well. Let's go ahead and do that. So if I trace the outer and the inner, I can now move my original file off to the side and or delete it. And then what I'm left with is just the cut file itself. When I click on the send button, it will pick up on those lines because they're already drawn, and this will be cut out of my paper. Let me show you what this looks like really quick if we were to trace only the outer edge. So with only the outer edge, if I were to move my pumpkin to the side, you would see that we've just got the outline of the pumpkin, which is always an option if you want a specific shape, like a pumpkin, but you don't necessarily want all the intricate pattern that is placed inside of it. All right, so that is going to conclude our lesson for today on cutting a cut file. How do you go about doing that? What I would love for you to do for your homework this week is to pull open a cut file inside of your Silhouette program and cut it out. Just go through the process of pulling it open inside of Silhouette and sending it to your Silhouette machine after selecting the type of material and blade that you are using. Next week when we come back, I'm going to show you how you can bring your own PNGs into Silhouette Studio in order to create a cut file that is totally yours. So come back here next week so I can tell you more about that. Until then, I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, friends, and I will see you in the next lesson.